Hi all, in this video let's learn about how to implement internationalization in your React applications. So firstly, let's understand what is this internationalization. It means just take this as a Amazon website. So here you have an option to modify your language. So it means you can see this application in different languages like Telugu, Hindi, Tamil, Kannada, all these different languages. So how to implement this internationalization in our applications? So this is what we are going to discuss. So not just this internalization, not just the text conversion. Okay, this has many things to deal. So while you're doing internationalization, it's not only the text conversion, you need to think of the date time format, number format, and currency formats as well. All these three things need to be taken care when a user modifies his locale. So this comes under the internationalization. So with the help of this, what happens is we can increase the traffic for our web application. So that is the advantage. So more likely the users will be seeing in their own languages, their locales. So with that, we can encourage the traffic for our website will be increased. So this is the advantage of implementing the internationalization. So now let's see how to implement this step by step. So firstly, let me take this internationalization. So I, and there are 18 letters in between I and the last N. So that's the reason in short it is called as a i18n. Okay, this is a name we have. This is a normal create React application. So now let me install the dependencies. Let's start with that installing the dependencies. Firstly, let's install npm I hyphen yes. So it means we are installing this as a dependencies, not a dev dependencies. So what all the libraries we are installing? We are installing React hyphen i18 next. This is one dependency, and i18 next. This is another dependency. Two dependencies we are installing. So the first dependency i18 next is the dependency which is like a framework in order to support this internationalization. And React i18 next. So this is to provide some hooks for us in order to use this internationalization concept. So that's the reason we have installed these two things. And now still there are two more dependencies we need to install. So let me install them. So npm I, it's for install i18. See I18 next HTTP backend. So this is one dependency, and I18 next browser language detector. This is one dependency. So let me install that, and now I will talk about them. So what is this I18 next HTTP backend means? So when you modify your language, you need to load that particular language text file. So in order to pick that particular language text file, for example, we are having English. If I modify that to the German or French languages, I need to load the German and French languages text files. So that can be taken care with the IE18 next HTTP backend. So this is a dependency we use for that purpose. And this is IE18 next browser language detector. This is used to detect the user's language. Which language is user currently seeing the application. So this dependency is for that. So now the dependency installation part is done. So now let's create a simple component. Let me create a simple component called welcome component. So I will not do more things here, like just we'll do as simple as things like let me return back. Okay, I will return here h1 with the hello user. So normal text. And here I will be using a div sample application. This is a normal component. Let me export this component so that I can use this in the app.js file. So now this is a dummy component we have created with two texts. So now what we are going to do is like we are going to translate these two files, like these two values. By default, let's keep the application in English, and if someone modifies that to the French, we'll modify this languages like this text into the French language. So let's see that. Okay, now we have a component. So let's go back to app.json and include this. So before that, let's um, create the main configuration part. Let's discuss about the main configurations part. Under src, create a file, name it as i18n.js file. So this is the configuration file. So we are going to configure i18 next, and we are going to initialize this. So how we are going to do that? So let me show you here. So this is the official documentation, i18next.com overview API. So if you come here, so I will keep this in the description as well. So if you come here, so you will be having a set of configurations like this. So let me copy these configurations. I'm copying. So this needs to be kept here. I'm copying here. But here we are not using the cache yet. So if you want to use a cache, you can use a cache. And we are not using the post preprocessor. So if you want to use, you can use that. So that's the reason I will be removing these two parts, post preprocessor and the cache part. So this is a configuration we need, and we kept that configuration like that. Apart from this, we need to do some initialization part as well. So in order to have our React.js next, so we need to import that. So import int react init react i18 next from react 18. Fine. So we are also going to use this. So that's the reason we are importing that. I think here it should be. Yes, this is the one. Now we need to use this as well. So let me use this dot use and include it. Yep. Now we are good. And now we need to provide some configurations. Till now, the configuration part was done. We need to initialize this. So initialize this with a couple of options. So let me remove this. So options will be in an object. So let me use an object here. And what all the properties we need to give is a fallback lang. So this is the fallback lang we need to use. It means by default, what is the default language? We are selecting by default the language is as English. And next property is debug true. It means it will give us the debugging logs. Okay, this should be false when you go to the production mode. And apart from this, one more last property is interpolation. So here you need to give the escape value as false. So this is in order to avoid the cross-site scripting issues. So we are keeping this property in order to resolve the cross-site scripting issues. But React in general will be taking care of these issues. Okay, you no need to worry of this. But finally, this is how the configuration was set and initialized. We need to export this file. So we are exporting this i18n. Fine. So i18n. I will stop at this. Yep. Now we are clear. So we have a configuration file and we could able to work on that. Like, okay, let me modify this as n. Okay, this is what we need. Fine. And the backend language, everything was configured. We need to use that here. And we are okay. This is good. Now the configuration file for i18n is kept. So now let's create the translation files. So by default, what happens? So we discussed that this i18 next HTTP backend is taking care of picking the files, okay, language files. From there, where it picks by default the location path is packages, locales folder, and here you need to mention the which language. So if it is English, English language, so like that you need to provide and translation. So this is the file. So this is the default location. It is going to search for the translation files. Okay, public locales folder. So let me go to the public and create a folder called locales. And in this folder, let me create two folders. So one is for the English. Okay, and inside this English, let me create a file called translation.json file. Okay, in the similar way, in the locale, again I'm going to create one more folder called French, and inside this, for we are again going to create a translation.json. So now we have two different things. So here, let's create a couple of key and value. So if I say welcome, so here let's say it as hello user. So this is the key and this is the value. And next, let me say this as a language. Okay. And let's, this is a, oh, sorry, this is a French language. Okay. So, but let's say this is a, we are in French or English. So let me copy this and let's keep in the English and in the French language. So we need to do something like we need to translate this English into French language. So let's go to the Google and in the Google Translator, we can use this. So for that, let me say hello user is this. So I'm copying this and I'm keeping here. So in the real world environment, you no need to worry about these translations. So translation will be taken care by them. Like they will be providing you that key value pairs. Okay, for now here we are using Google. And now in the public locales, we have created a folder env. For each language, you need to create this translation.json file. If you have still more files, still more other languages, if you want to support 4 more languages, you can do that as well. So you can create that folders and create the translation.json file like this. And this is a key and this is a value. For every locale file, that keys should be unique and the values should be in their language. What is the text? Okay, this is how you need to do. And we will refer this welcome in the our components. This is what we are going to do next. So what we are going to do, let's go back to our component and let's see that. So for now, like welcome is a component we have. Now, instead of using this, if you use like this, what happens directly, this text would be visible. Now we need to pick that from this translation file. So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to import. So we are going to import use translation. So this is a hook we will be having in the React i18. So here, so this is the reason we have installed this React i18 next dependency. Here you will be having a hook called use translation. So let's create. So I'm creating a T, and here we are using this use translation hook. Now with the T method, so we are going to implement it. So for example, here instead of hello user directly, what I will do, I will write JSX T and I will open this. I will remove this text. Now I need to mention the key here. What is the key I need to use? So go back here. So welcome is a key. So come here back in the welcome. So this is the welcome. Okay, this is how you need to represent. Now this key it would be picking. Now sample application. So instead of that, we have made that as a language, right? So let's keep that key. So what is the key we have there? Go back here. So language is the next key. So we are referring this. So now in the place of welcome, hello user will be coming. In the place of language, English will be coming. So go back to the welcome file and click and mention this. So now see, this is how you need to replace the things. So in all the components everywhere, this is what you need to do. You need to import this use translation, get this T from use translation hook, and you need to replace the keys here. Instead of directly keeping the values, you need to keep the keys so that when the language is modified for the English language, this hello world, hello user and English would be picked. For the French, it would be picking this one. So this is how it goes. Fine. So till this point, we are clear, right? Now we'll do the main job. So come back to the app.js. So till now we have did the configuration part. So now in the app.js, let me remove this unnecessary part. Yep, this is a in general create React app will be giving us, right? So here let me import i18n from i18. So this configuration is needed. So now this configuration was loaded here, and we need to use our component. So I'm using the welcome component here. So welcome component was used and it was imported. So we need to use suspense here. So one more concept I wanted to explain here. We are going to use suspense. So this is a component. So it was present in the React, okay, suspense component. Why we are using this is when you are modifying the language, okay, and when the translation files are loading, okay, when you are modified the language and the translation files are loading, it takes some time. So in that time we need to show some component to the users. Instead of showing an empty things, we need to show something. So that's the reason the suspense component would be taken here. And now we are giving a fallback component to it. Okay, for now what I'm doing is like just I'm keeping a loading component like this. Okay, but in general, so let me create one loading component, a small text, that's it, nothing more than that. But in general what you can do is like you can create your loaders, spinners there. Okay, you can have your own loader and spinner. So for now I'm just having this one, that's it. This component would be loaded here while you modify the language locale file. When it takes some time, you can use whatever the fancy loading spinners you wanted here, you can use that. So this is the reason we are using the suspense component. If any case, if there is a delay, then we can pick this. This component would be shown. So till this point we are clear, right? So now the next main point is till this point we can check the application. It would be fine. In verifying, so let me go back. Okay, one second. There is an issue. I18 is not defined. I18 line number 6. So let me go back. I1896. So I think I need to mention this as N. So this is what it means. Okay, fine. So till this point, it's like it will pick. Let's see, we can see the application as well. So till this point, if you go here, see it is picking the language. It means you have given in the welcome component what you have given T welcome T language you have given. It means it is picking the language, the text, the values from the key. Okay, okay, this is fine. But what we need to do when the user changes the language, okay, then we need to detect his language and then we need to load that file. So for that, let's create the locale file like a context. So when the user modifies something, the drop down, we need to understand what language is selected and that should be passed to all the components so that all the components can modify their language, right? So for that purpose, we are going to create one context. So in general, context will be there for the applications. You can include this as a special property there. But if the context is not there, so this is what we are going to do. So locale context.js file. So we are creating a new context file. So here we are importing create context. So if you want to learn what is context and what it is, okay, so I have done a dedicated video on this. So what is this React context API, when to use it, what problem it solves, how it helps, how it is different from the Redux. So I have done a dedicated video on that React context, but you can have a look on this as well. I will keep this link at the end card. And so now we need to create the context, and in the context let me create the default. So the default values first, this is an object default value. Inside this we are giving English as a default value. Inside that we will be keeping it just a function, okay, just a setup to modify this function locale. That's it. Not more than this. This is a context we will be passing. And now let's export this default create context of default value. Okay, we are giving this. So we have created a context and now this will be passed to all the components. Okay, now we have a context. Fine. So this context needs to be used. So let's come back to the app.js file. Here in the app.js file, let me import the context. Import locale context. Yes, we have imported. Now let's see, once we import this context, we need to pass this to all the users, right? So for that, we need to use this here. So I'm using the provider. In the context concept, what we'll be having is a context and the provider. Context means the person who is uh, giving like here you will be the context. So what is the context? So this we are going to pass to all the components, okay? And we will wrap that in a provider. These terms will be very new for the persons who are listening the context and the provider, but check out that video. I have explained that in a very simple way. related to the context and the provider. So again, it takes more time to explain here. So now what we are doing is a consumer and the provider will be there in the context. So as a provider, we will be providing these values. So we will provide what values? The locale and set locale. These are the two values, right? In the context we have. So those two values we are passing to the others. All other components. We'll keep this here. So now this is what happens. This locale context dot provider. With this, we are providing these values, locale value and so set locale method to all other components. See, whatever the components you have, all will be present here. You need to wrap this provider on top of all the components so that all the components can have the access to this locale variable and set locale. Okay, for now we are using only single component. If you have multiple components also, you need to keep all the components inside this provider so that it can have access to all the things, right? So now let's see. Okay, 18 line locale is not defined. Yep. We'll come here. So now we have something like this, and now we need to provide a way to the users to select, to modify the language, right? So for that, so let me create it. So I'm creating one more div. So here the users need to change their language. That's what the intentions. For that, what we are going to do is label. So locale change. So I'm creating a locale change. We will be providing a drop down for the users so that they can modify their language. Okay, this is what we are providing. Now option as value en. This is the option, and English. So let's see this, say the same. So here for the simplicity purpose, we are doing only for the two languages. So it depends upon your applications, how many languages you wanted to support. Okay, that many options you can provide here, and that many translation JSON files you can provide there. And also, as I said, the internationalization is not just transferring the text. You also need to take care of numbers, currencies, and date formats. For the simplicity purpose, here I am only showing the text conversion. So in the upcoming videos, we'll try to showcase the other things as well. Now let's create the value. So what value the user was selected. So that needs to be given here. So then only it would be modified. And when on change. So on change, we are going to trigger one method. So let me write that method, handle change. So now let's write these things. So now we have a drop down where we can select the things. Now let's write the handler part. Constant handle on handle change. So here we'll take the event, and now inside this, now we need to understand. So what happens? So when you modify the value, what should happen? So before that, so let's take one state, constant locale dot set locale use state. I'm using use state here. Okay, it would be imported automatically. And what is the default language I'm using here is i18n dot language. I'm not setting it to anything. I'm just picking it from the configuration file i18 dot language. So this language would be the default language we'll be getting. So we are picking that. Okay. Now we have we have an event in i18 dot on language changed. So whenever the language is modified, so we have an event there on and language changed. So this is the event we have. When we this event occurred, then we need to write a callback when the language was modified. What exactly we need to do? We need to set the locale. We need to set the locale to that desired language. 18 i18 dot language. Okay, whatever the language we modified, that language would be set here. But when we handle this, so this when it will trigger on language change, when it will trigger, it means when we modify this drop down, and inside this drop down we will do one thing, i18n dot change language. There is one event called change language. So we are doing this change language, and we are telling which language was modified. target dot value. Now this will give you either fetch or en. So this value would be given here. So when you do i18n change language and you're modifying which language it is modified, then this event would be triggered. Okay, as the language was modified, the language changed event would be triggered, and we are setting what language it is modified. Once we are setting this, what we'll do is like we will be providing that. So what we have modified, this locale value, right? That locale value will be passing through all the components. This provider is going to pass this locale to all the components. Now, if it is set to fetch, it would be passed to all the languages. So in that way, this welcome component would be modifying to the fetch. Okay, now let's see. So this is how we have implemented. We have taken the dropdown. Once the dropdown was modified, we are modifying the change language and we are giving what language was modified, and we have an event called on change language change. There we are setting the locale. As we have this context in the provider concept, once something modifies, this provider is going to update this value and it is going to give to all the children component which are present here. So in this way, the language text should be modified. So because of this, okay, i18 on language changed and change language. Because of this, what happens is even if you refresh the page as well, okay, the language will be in the same mode. The language will not be modified. If a user selects the French language, so let me show you that. Okay, let me go back here. So now we have a locale change English. So I think it is bit small. Now I think it is okay, right? So now I'm modifying to French. So see, it was modified to the French language. Okay, if it takes more time to load the, then the suspense component would be triggered and the fallback loading component would be shown here. So that is what happens. If I modify again to English, it would be modified to English. Again, I will modify to French. It will be in French. If I refresh the application, okay, it will not modify. The language again, it will not going to reset back to the English. It will still stay with the French itself. Okay, this is what the React internalization implementation for our React applications. Hope you understand the video. Thanks for watching, and we have a lot of content related to the React, JavaScript, and interviews things in our Rethinking UI channel. Please have a look at it. If you like them, please subscribe for the channel. Thanks for watching.